What's going on, everybody? This is the Black Trekker. Thank you for taking time at your morning, afternoon, or evening to sit in with me for a few ticks as I talk to you about the next episode of Star Trek Picard, Episode 9, Vox. That's V-O-X. So, I'm going to tell you about the things that I like about this particular episode and the things that I didn't like. And I'm going to start off by saying this probably was the best episode of the whole entire season, just to throw that out there. All right, so where does it start off at? I forgot. I don't even remember where it starts off at. I was taken back by the whole fact of the last 5 minutes of the episode that kind of saturated the whole entire episode at large and made me be like, wow. Like, as a Star Trek fan, this is like 35 years in the making because I got to be frankly honest. This is, it was very a nostalgic moment for me, and I'm sure a lot of other Trekkies were experiencing this as well. All right, so what does it happen? It goes back to Counselor Troy sitting down with Jack Crusher Jr. I always say Jr. because of the simple fact that he's named after his mother's ex-husband. Anyway, the thing is that he sits down with Counselor Troy. Counselor Troy opens the door after reassuring him that nothing is going to occur. And what transpires is something shocking. She opens the door, she sees fire and destruction and brimstone and all of this stuff. And then what happens is that she sees a Borg cube. Now, on the internet and all over social media, they were talking about they believed it was the Borg. They believed that the changeling overlord or whatever it was, the boss that was telling Vedic what to do was Borg. Now, I didn't agree with that, but I did call it. I did call it weeks and weeks ago. I stated that the changelings were not the main culprit. The changelings were being controlled and manipulated by a larger and more powerful entity to be able to dictate what they were doing. And I was right. I was right on that part. I didn't say the Borg emphatically. Nonetheless, it was the Borg. And so Counselor Troy, she jumps up and she runs out of the room. Jack's like, what? Runs into, I think they're in sick bay or something like that. And Beverly Crusher and Admiral Picard are talking like, what's going on? What's going on? And so basically what occurs is she says the Borg. Now, the intermatic syndrome that Picard suffered from was actually coding. It was actually technology that the Borg had left over that was not revealed until Dr. Soong, the predecessor of the original Soong, was able to discover when Picard transitioned over to being synthetic. And the Borg, see, everybody was making a statement that the Borg had just sat around for 35 years on their laurels and wasn't doing nothing. Nope. The Borg were way smarter than that. Way smarter than that. I mean, come on now. They're a technological society. I mean, they are way more advanced than the Federation in terms of industrial capacity and also overall technology and knowledge. So with that being said, they didn't sit around for 35 years not doing something. They had a plan of action. And matter of fact, I suspect the plan of action was this. They put in code for Picard when he changed into Locutus. And then what they did was that they had the code just sitting there just in case to be able to infiltrate Starfleet later on. It's dang industrious on their part. I got to give them credit for that. That's creative. And then also I would say that the writers that created this episode, rather this season, that was cool retconning of the history of Star Trek because that's creative. And then, I mean, I'm not going to front. I was a little bit annoyed by the fact that it's the Borg. I'm like, come on now. This is what the Borg are going to do with Starfleet. Because of the simple fact that you know that Frontier Day is literally in this episode the day of. So I'm like, wait a second. The Borg going to wait till all of the ships in Starfleet are on Earth and near Earth. And then what they're going to do is attack. I mean, that's stupid. I mean, they could have did that decades ago. They could have did that years ago. But the Borg are crafty. They're very intelligent, highly sophisticated, and they got it. Look, whoever came up with the storyline, brilliant. I got to say, I was highly impressed by that. So what happens is that they discover that Jack is actually Borg, but he's also more. He's human / Borg hybrid, basically. So Picard is like, listen, I got to go back. I got to go talk to my son. I'm at fault for this because of the fact that I was the cutest. And, and then, Beverly's like, oh, no, we'll talk to him together. No, look, Picard's like, no, I got to go talk to him. So what happens is that before Picard goes to talk to him, he's got like some security officers outside the door. Because Troy was like, yeah, your son is dangerous. Not a little bit dangerous. Dangerous. Because he's a Borg now. So with that being said, he goes in and talks about, 35 years ago, I was taken by the Borg and I was made to do all this big Willie stuff. I killed almost everybody I loved almost. And, I didn't have no control. And I was basically being told what to do by the Borg. And so what occurred is that Jack was like, so what you trying to say? Jack like, what you get to the point, man? Get to the point. And he was like, yeah, you're basically Borg. And he was like, so that aromatic syndrome is meaning that I'm actually Borg DNA? Yeah, Borg coding. Now, what they tried to do, Jack, he got upset at Picard. He took his weapon and walked off. And then what happened is that the security officers was at the door. Jack looked at him because Jack got the ability to control people for whatever reason, some telekinesis power that he got, was able to control the guards. The guards point their weapons at Picard. Like, what's up? You ain't going nowhere. You ain't going to stop Jack. So Jack walking through the corridor, and then his mom come out of nowhere, and she tries to stop him. And they point the guns at her. And so what occurs is that Jack's like, listen, I've been trying to fight this my whole entire life. I'm not going to fight it no more. I'm going to go and deal with the Borg Queen or whoever it is myself. So with that being said, that's what occurred. Jack left the ship. He turned off the transponder for the shuttle. And then what happens is that he hears the voices. Now, everybody thought initially that it was the voice of, well, not everybody, but mostly everybody thought it was the voice of his mother, Beverly. But in actuality, it was the voice of the Borg Queen. The Queen was calling him, come to me, come to me. And that's why a lot of people was like, yo, this big voices in my head is the Borg Queen talking to Jack, like, come to me. And that was an assumption. They thought that the actual boss was the actual locutus, and then they was also thinking that it was the Borg Queen. So a lot of people was right on the money. I was right about the fact that it was a larger, more powerful organizational force that was in charge of overall telling the changelings what to do. Because nobody wants smoke with the Borg. Nobody wants smoke with the Borg. I don't care what galaxy, what saga, what universe you in. Nobody wants smoke with the Borg. Seriously. And I know people gonna be like, well, I watch Star Wars. No. The Empire don't want smoke with the Borg. Freaking the the Jedi, the Sith, they don't want no parts of the Borg at all. Not even the Flood want no parts of the Borg. So let's stop it. Then you can go to Halo too. They don't want no parts of the Borg, either the Covenant. You can go to Warhammer 40K and they don't want no parts of the Borg. Because the Borg are huge. I'm not gonna say they're infinite, but they're huge. I mean, they're like an elephant compared to ants. They're like huge. They're like a whale compared to like shrimp in the ocean. They're huge. And there's trillions of them, trillions of the Borg. And I ain't just talking about trillions of like, what do they call themselves? Robots? No, drones. Trillions of drones. So this is what happened. You discovered that who's in charge of the fleet is Admiral Shelby. Because back in Star Trek TNG, she was Lieutenant Commander Shelby. And she was in charge of fleet defense. Apparently, after 35 years, she finally made it to the rank of Admiral, which to be expected. I mean, let's get serious. You've been in Starfleet for like 40 years. You should be an Admiral. I mean, come on now. If your career progression takes that long, I just want to say you suck as an actual Starfleet officer, and you suck in the progression of actually being someone in your particular field. You should be the higher, upper echelon of your career field. So it's to be expected that she would be an Admiral by now. Kudos to Shelby. Bravo. Good job. She did her thing. Now, She was in charge of the Enterprise F. She was actually flying the Enterprise F. I'm not going to front. The Enterprise F is a beefy ship. It's huge. Like, I'm talking about when it was coming out of space dock. That ship was massive. Now, I'm only jumping ahead a little bit. So once they figure out that Jack has left, they can't track him because his transponder is off. Picard's like, look, we got to get to Frontier Day, which is in the Sol system, which is at Earth. Now, why? Why are you making the whole entire fleet? Come on now. This was dumb. I'm going to tell you something that I don't like. I don't like that the Admiralty and Starfleet thought it was a good idea to bring the whole entire fleet to Earth. I mean, I know the Klingons are y'all allies, supposedly. The Romulan Empire really don't exist no more. But on the fringes of Federation space, it ain't nothing. It ain't nothing. It's nothing there. I mean, come on now. I know the Federation has like sensor nets, and I know the Federation has, some automatic defense systems and whatnot, but let's get serious. You're not going to leave your whole entire quadrant, your whole entire area unprotected. That's stupid just to have a celebration about something that happened 200, and especially at the Federation, because I remember they said the Federation was 1,500 light years. So 1,500 light years of space, let's get serious. That's dumb. I know they got transwarp, and you probably could be to the edge, and probably like, with transwarp or slipstream, you probably could be there in like around a couple of hours. But still, no, you're not going to do that. Anyway, so they was like, we got to get to Earth. Meanwhile, they can't track the shuttle. Data comes in, and now Data has full, capacities, and he's full control of his body, and it's just him. So he can be empathetic, he can be understanding, he can be caring, remorseful, all the basic emotions that most humans have. So he goes in there and tries to console Picard. And he's like, I could say something. And Picard was like, yeah, it really wouldn't work right now. And Data got it. It wasn't taking him a long time to say a bunch of stuff that he used to say in TNG. He got it. He comprehended. So with that being said, now Jack appears in this big cloud. Sensors go off, tachyon emissions, transwarp field detected. So that means transwarp hub detected. So everybody that was saying that the Borg were sitting on their laurels for 35 years was under the assumption that the Borg didn't rebuild their transwarp hubs. No, absolutely not. The Borg absolutely did rebuild their transwarp hubs. And I seriously doubt it took them a couple decades to do it. It probably took them, on average, maybe like max, because they had to, connected to all four quadrants in the galaxy. I would say minimum, maybe 10 years max, and that's assuming if the unicomplex that was in the Delta Quadrant was completely destroyed or whatever. I doubt it. No, and it was trillions of Borgs and also hundreds of millions of cubes. That's why I was just like, the whole concept of them attacking on Fleet Day, Frontier Day, was absurd, because they could have just launched 10,000 Borg cubes and that would have took care of everybody. But they didn't do that. I guess the Borg want to be reasonable, or in a governmental term, proportional response. So that's what occurred, a proportional response. But see, they immediately, they contacted Captain Shaw and was like, hey, Captain Shaw, we got to get to the Sol system like now. And he was like, oh, let's go to the Sol system where the whole of Starfleet is waiting for us. And then also what we're going to do. And he was like, look, we ain't got no choice, of course, because we the only ship available to do it. So they go to warp. They can't find Jack because Jack turned off the transponder. So they have no idea where Jack is. So what happens is Jack sees this unicomplex, because he gets transported from where he was in that cloud, transported to wherever they are in the galaxy, to this huge unicomplex structure. So they beam him over. He got this like retro era phaser, and he's pointing it. Dude, first off, bye. Stop it. You ain't gonna be no match for look, in one Borg cube is hundreds. It's hundreds. It's at least 100,000 Borg drones. What you think you're gonna do? And I know bullets have an effect on Borg drones, but even if I was locked, rock, ready to cock, all that stuff, even if I had an M4 loaded to capacity, that ain't nothing to 100,000 drones. Stop it. Stop it. That's crazy. You might as well not even take nothing. Just beam over there and be like, I'm not going to do it. So he can hear the voices of the queen talking to him more and more and more, getting louder, getting more pronounced. Meanwhile, the USS Titan is warping to Earth. And so he finally gets into the actual chamber where the queen is. And she's like, welcome home, my son. Welcome home, my child. Welcome home. And you know what? I got to say this, though. Although I was hoping it wasn't going to be the Borg, I have to say that how they set it up was beautiful. It was beautiful because of the simple fact that the Borg are the Federation's biggest threat. I mean, let's be frank. During the Dominion War, the Changelings were kicking the Federation's butt before the Romulans got involved. I mean, if you want to be truthful, they were really kicking the butt of the Federation. And before the Federation came up with that brilliant idea, Section 31, let's give a round of applause. Section 31 had the brilliant idea of creating a changeling virus. That was absolutely epic. The Federation was getting hammered because the Dominion, they knew how to fight. And they had really good warships. And they had a cannon fodder that loved the fight. It was like basically like Klingons on steroids. So they loved the fight because they was addicted to Catcher Cell White. Hey, that rhymed. So anyway, they loved the fight and they was addicted to Catcher Cell White. That works. Anyway, so they were really good. So it was amazing what changed over now. So to say that the Dominion almost brought the Federation to their knees, yeah, they almost did. But the Borg, man, they're brutal. They're merciless. There ain't no negotiating with them. The Dominion is ruled by the founders who don't like solids, all solids. The Borg don't like all organic, natural life, period. They want you to be a part of their collective. Now, I don't know how a Borg would, assimilate changeling, but nonetheless, the Borg are big enough, they're powerful enough to even punk the changelings, even to punk the Dominion. You know, the Borg probably went to the Dominion and was like, look, you're going to help us take over Starfleet. And if you do, you can survive. If you don't, we're just going to annihilate you. I mean, I don't know what the Dominion fleet look like. The fleet looks like, but I could pretty much imagine they ain't got like 100,000 ships just waiting on standby at any given moment. Especially when them ships are 3.5 kilometers in diameter and are able to repair themselves against almost any kind of attack. Yeah, the Dominion capitulated quick and was like, yeah, we're not gonna try to challenge y'all. Nah. Right, smart. But anyway, so the USS Titan finally gets to Earth. And almost immediately, Geordi is like, okay, well, their systems are already interlinked. And what happens is that all these green lights start coming on and the flashes and ship-wide. And in the meantime, they're watching like on some intergalactic, interstellar television where Admiral Shelby is talking about the USS NX-01 commanded by Captain Archer. She didn't say Archer's name, but Captain Archer was like 250 years ago, a quarter of a millennium. And it was the foundation of the Federation and Starfleet and all yada, yada, yada. So what happened is that there was like one of the new modern features of the Federation is fleet formation. Basically, fleet formation, which is a dumb idea. And I don't know why anybody in Starfleet Admiralty thought it was a good idea. All the ships in the fleet will be linked to each other. And I guess that would be for communication, or I guess that would be for them to be able to, synchronization, that's the word they use, synchronization, to be synchronized so that I guess they could fight in unison. That's dumb. That's so dumb. That is so dumb. You want to have separate firewalls. You want to have closed, the term is closed networks. You want to have a closed network where your ship is independent from other ships. Because if someone breaches that network, then the whole thing collapses like some dominoes. That was a dumb invention, whoever came up with that for the Federation Starfleet. That's dumb. And I'm surprised the Vulcans went along with that. That was dumb. So this is what they discovered. They discovered that the Borg had been using changelings to be able to infiltrate, because the Borg don't look like humans. They look like the Borg. And so they use the changelings because they can basically imitate any species what they look like, their physical features. So what they did was they used the changelings and they modified their DNA or their genetics so they could pass the Starfleet scanners. And then they uploaded all of the code from Locutus's body, aka old Jean-Luc Picard. And what they did was they uploaded his body DNA into all of the transporter architecture. Because what does 98.9% of everybody on Starfleet vessels do? They use the transporters. They use the transporters, and the Borg was able to integrate that information into their genetic code when they rematerialized, so they have Borg. It's pretty awesome. That's a pretty diabolical, cutthroat, ingenious idea that the Borg came up with. Because if the Borg implemented that for all of the Federation, then everybody would be Borg. And then also they implemented it in the Klingon Empire. Not to say all Klingons use the transporter, but a good majority of them do. But they ain't saying the Klingon Empire. So with that was brilliant. And Geordi was just like, oh my goodness, not my daughters. Bro, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than your family. It's all of Starfleet. And I ain't even talking about the humans on Earth that they probably infiltrated. That's serious. So anyway, they get into the formation. They realizing that Dr. Beverly Crusher discovers that the thing doesn't. It stops after the prefrontal lobe. I don't know what the word is. The thing in the front of your brain, the cerebellum. The prefrontal cortex. Yeah, after the prefrontal cortex stops developing at 25, it doesn't go on forward than that. So everybody that's over the age of 25 is fine. The Borg don't control them. But everybody under the 25, they do. Like, Commodore LaForge's daughters are under that age. So, yeah. So all of the young people on the ship, they start to turn into Borgs. And they're not being communicative. And then Picard, what he did was he made a ship announcement, a fleet announcement to everybody like, hey, our greatest enemy is coming back, the Borg. Admiral Shelby looking like, what? The Borg? Shut up. And so what happens is that like 15, 20 seconds later, all of the young people on the ship that's under 25 start to change in the Borg and start to attack everybody. And she gets gunned down. Like, they talking to her on the view screen because she realizes the truth. And she gets gunned down. 2 shots to the sides. Bam, she got hit. She got one right here, one right here. All right, so that's what happens. So all of the ships get taken over. So they realize we got to get off the Titan because the Titan's in synchronization now too. So they're fighting to get off of the ship. We go back to the Borg Queen. The Borg Queen is saying resistance is futile, Jack. You can't win. If you could have killed me, you would have killed me, but you can't kill me because you got that little pissy ass phaser and you in a Borg unicomplex that's home to hundreds of millions of drones. Get serious, guy. You think a little phaser gonna kill me? Bye. So anyway, he just finally submits because he realizes I can't do nothing to it. I can't do nothing to her because she is the queen. And then on top of that, I'm a part of this. So he gets stuck in the back, his neck, kind of like something like to do with like the Matrix, but way worse, way worse. And so then it goes back to the USS Titan. They finally are about to try to get off. There was a code that was used by the USS Excelsior. It wasn't the Excelsior from Kirk's time. It was a different type of Excelsior. But that Excelsior also got integrated with the synchronization program. And then from there, it was moving outward. And they used the maintenance channel to be able to send out this information. But they took over the Borg and they destroyed the Excelsior. Right when the captain was like, tell my family, click, boom, destroyed. And so Captain Shaw recognized that because Captain Shaw comes from maintenance. I didn't know you can make a transition from maintenance to command. But then again, also been in Starfleet for 35 years. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, one thing the great thing about Starfleet is that if you got the aptitude and you got the willingness, you can almost do anything. Almost. I wish the real world worked like that, but it doesn't. So anyway, they get to a maintenance shuttle because maintenance shuttles and shuttles in general are not connected to this synchronization thing. Whoever thought of that idea, that was pretty smart, but everything else was completely dumb and stupid. So what occurs is they get to the maintenance shuttle and they get off the ship. Now, meanwhile, Captain Shaw's dying and he's like, the ship is yours. I mean, there ain't no ship left. It's controlled by the Borg. I mean, the ship is mine. How? The ship is yours. And 7 to 9. So I guess he just gave her like a battlefield promotion when he said that. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, the thing is that 7 and Ralphie are together. Now, I don't know how they're going to get off the ship. Now, 7 to 9, she already has Borg implants. So the whole thing about making her assimilated, I don't know how that's going to happen because she's technically already Borg. So I don't know how that's going to happen. Ralphie, yeah, she's easy pickings. So here we go. They finally escape and they're asking Geordi like, hey man, where we going to go, man? We got to get a ship. And Geordi already know. He already like 5-6 steps ahead of them. So what Geordi does is Geordi's like, all right, cool. We're going to go back to the Fleet Museum. And we come back on the Fleet Museum and, they got all of the other ships there. And he was like, we're going to go to docking port 12. Now, this is where it gets better. So we go to docking port 12. And in docking port 12, he starts to hit the lights. Boom, boom. And then the one light come on. It says, what does it say? 1701D. And then it lights up and it's the USS Enterprise D. And it's powered down. It's powered down. There's no power on it. And it's just like, Geordi, that's the Enterprise. And it was a nostalgic moment. I mean, as a Star Trek fan, it was outstanding. I mean, it was by far one of the best moments. And then they finally go into the ship and they go into the main bridge. And he was like, computer, lights. And like all of the L cars lights start lighting up like, and it's tight. And the lights come on. And finally, a ship with lights that are bright. The brightness returns as it did in the original show. And with that being said, you can see how like dystopian their outfits look like and kind of dark. But nonetheless, and so he's walking around and Worf had said something like, the weapon system is going to be limited. And it's like, hey, we're working with the best way we can get. And I remember the Enterprise D had 250 photon torpedoes. I mean, I don't know what the equivalent cruisers of that particular era have, but 250 photon torpedoes ain't nothing to gawk at, considering that the Shriek had 200 photon torpedoes. That's 50 more. So come on, let's get serious. And so Picard is walking and he looks at the plaque that's on the wall and it says USS Enterprise. I really can't make out like the people's names and all that. And then it's like Geordi and everybody's at their station. And so what happens is Worf makes a statement about I would prefer the Titans. I would prefer the Sovereign's weapon systems, extra phaser arrays. And they're just looking at him like, dude, we got to make do. This ship is 35. Basically what Geordi the Forge did was, because I neglected to mention this, what happened is that in Star Trek Generations, when it hit the planet of Viridian, I believe 2 or 3, there was a civilization that was pre-industrial, and per the Prime Directive, they couldn't leave any kind of like semblance of Federation technology there, because even though they're pre-warp, like basically like our technology, imagine if we would have found a ship of that size there. I'm not saying there was government agencies that existed on that planet, but all it would take is one of those government agencies to find huge ships like that, quarantine the whole entire area off, make it into a giant government facility, and then reverse engineer every single aspect of that ship to the best of their ability. It would take generations, but they would learn a lot about propulsion, weapon systems, computer engineering processing. Even though that ship is 30 plus years old compared to like other ships in Starfleet, compared to a pre-warp civilization, that would have been a gold mine. That would have been like stumbling on Fort Knox with no guards, no security, no freaking locks, and just find all the gold. It'll be worth everything. But thankfully, because of the Prime Directive, they went back, I guess I would assume years or months later, and they got the actual saucer. And as Geordi was explaining when they were coming up on the ship, he was saying that the saucer is original, and also that the sails were given by another ship. So it's the Enterprise D all over again. All over again. And so what happens is that now they're on the ship, and it looks just like it was. It's a thing of beauty. It's Data comes up on the his seat and it's like, "Hi, seat," and he touches it, and he was like, "Hey, just to make sure this is not connected to the actual synchronization program." And he's like, "Absolutely not," because LaForge has been putting it back together piece by piece over these many years of him being in the curator, basically, of the actual museum. And it's a good thing he did. So it's completely not connected. This big, giant ship. And I mean, compared to the Enterprise F, the Enterprise D is not as big, but the Enterprise D is the biggest ship in Starfleet inventory next to the F. I mean, they haven't made any other ship bigger than that. So it's a pretty big ship, 642 meters in length. Come on now, that's a big ship. I think it's like 6 million metric tons or something like that. So it's a big ship. And with that, those ships were used in the Dominion War to fight the Dominion. The actual Dominion variant ones, they were more like warships. But anyway, I digress. So he was like, he was like, "LaForge," and he was like, "Oh, by all means, Captain." And then what happens is he's like, Picard was like, implementation process, restart process. And it was like, and it was like, reinitializing process. Now in command, Captain Jean-Luc Picard. And he was like, I'll take a battlefield, a field demotion, and I'll take that. And so he was like, everybody station. He was like, I don't know if we could do this. And then Riker walked down and was like, "We're the crew of the USS Enterprise." And he was like, yeah, he was like, "I'll follow you anywhere. We're not just your crew, we your family." And I mean, in all honesty, if you've known some people for 35 years, you are family to that person. I mean, seriously, especially good or bad, up or down, left or right. You've known this person for 35 years. I mean, that is family. I mean, they may not be blood related to you, but they're our family members. And so he was like, "Okay, yeah." And he was like, "All right, number one." And Riker sat down in his seat, and Picard sat down in his seat. He was like, "We got to get to the solar system as fast as possible." And he was like, "Geordi, we're gonna need all we can get out of those old shields." And and Geordi was like, "All right," and he was like, "Engage." And and the Enterprise came out, and then it went to warp. Thing of beauty, man. As a Trekkie, I saw that and I kind of giggled. I was just like, wow, it was a moment of nostalgia, and it was also a moment of utter joy. They definitely pulled the heartstrings of a lot of Star Trek fans for this particular episode, Vox. And so, with that being said, this was one of the best episodes of the season, I have to say. The only thing I will say that is kind of like a downside is they could have got to the Borg part of the episode a lot sooner. They could have covered that in episode 6 or episode 5. But like I said before, I was right. There was a larger force at play that was controlling the changelings. It wasn't something that the changelings thought of themselves. Not at all. And so with that being said, it was a pretty good episode. I would give it an A average for this episode. And that's what's up. So I thank everybody for taking the time to sit in with me for a few ticks. Like, share, and subscribe. Let's hopefully get my subscribers up to 200, hopefully. And then from there, please add your comments. Tell me what you think. Did you believe that there was the Borg from the beginning? Did you also think that there would be some kind of connection to the Borg attacking on Frontier Day? What was your thoughts? Anyway, live long, prosper. Black Trekker taking out.